When I first started researching how cars are built, I had a feeling that something was off. It wasn't confusing, it was just wrong. No matter what comparison I looked at, teardown videos, reliability rankings, or long-term ownership studies, the same pattern kept appearing. Luxury cars from brands such as BMW, Mercedes, and Audi cost considerably more to manufacture than mass-market cars from Toyota or Honda. Yet, when you look at real data such as warranty claims, breakdown frequency, and long-term ownership costs, those same luxury cars almost always perform worse. For instance, building a Mercedes S-Class can cost nearly 3 times as much as building a Toyota Avalon. 5 years later, the Mercedes is far more likely to have spent time in a repair shop. The Toyota is still running exactly as it did on day one. This wasn't an exception. It wasn't just one bad year or an unlucky model. This was the norm. That's when everything stopped making sense. In almost every other industry, paying more usually means better performance, durability, and outcomes. But with cars, the pattern flips. The more you pay, the more complicated the machine becomes, and the more likely it is to fail. So I had to ask a question that most people never stop to ask. Why do the most expensive cars, built by some of the best engineers in the world, break more often than cheap ones? When I started digging into the answer, I realized something important. This story isn't really about cars. Essentially, it's about 2 completely different engineering philosophies, 2 different definitions of quality, and 2 business models that optimize for entirely different outcomes while selling into the same market. Once you understand this, the entire automotive industry suddenly makes sense. Let's start with how a mass market manufacturer thinks. When Toyota engineers a Camry, their primary goal is to ensure that the car starts every single morning for 200,000 miles with minimal intervention. The car must start every morning for 200,000 miles with minimal intervention. This goal shapes every decision. Components aren't chosen for maximum capability, but for proven durability. Systems aren't designed for peak performance. They're designed for consistent operation under abuse. Engineers aren't asking, what's the most advanced thing we can do? Rather, they ask, what's the simplest thing that will never break? There's a profound difference between those 2 questions. Consider the transmission. Toyota could use a cutting-edge dual-clutch gearbox that shifts faster and feels sportier and responds more precisely. But they don't. They use a traditional torque converter automatic. Why? Because it has been refined over decades. Every failure mode is understood. Every weak point has been eliminated. The technology is boring. In automotive engineering, boring means reliable. Now, think about the engine. Toyota could chase maximum horsepower per liter. They could implement complex variable valve timing, direct and port injection, and twin-scroll turbochargers. Sometimes they do, but even when they adopt advanced technology, they wait. They watch their competitors discover the problems first. Then, before the technology ever reaches production, they engineer solutions. I call this defensive engineering. Every choice is conservative. Every component is oversized for its task. Every system has redundancy. The goal isn't to impress, it's to never fail. Now, let's examine how a luxury manufacturer thinks. When BMW engineers the 7 Series, they're solving for a different outcome entirely. The car must provide an experience that justifies its $100,000 price tag. That changes everything. As it turns out, reliability isn't actually that impressive to a luxury buyer, at least not on day one. What's impressive is capability. Technology is impressive. What's impressive is the feeling that you're driving something genuinely advanced. So, BMW takes the opposite approach. They ask, what's the most sophisticated thing we can engineer? Then they find a way to mass produce it. They have adaptive air suspension that adjusts every damper independently based on road conditions and driving style. They have active anti-roll bars that can decouple entirely to improve comfort and then instantly stiffen for cornering. Gesture controls, 48-volt electrical systems, laser headlights, engine mounts that use electromagnetic fields to counteract vibration. Each of these systems is a genuine engineering achievement in isolation. But here's the problem. Complexity is the enemy of reliability. Let me give you a concrete example. A Toyota Camry has a naturally aspirated V6 engine. Simple, proven, durable. It produces adequate power, gets decent fuel economy, and can run for 300,000 miles without any problems. The BMW 7 Series features a turbocharged inline-six engine with variable valve timing and direct injection. It also has an electric supercharger for instant response and mild hybrid assistance. It's brilliant, it's powerful, it's efficient. However, it has roughly 7 times as many potential failure points. The turbocharger's bearings wear out. The supercharger has brushes and electronics that can malfunction. The hybrid system has batteries that degrade. Direct injection causes carbon buildup. Each system requires sensors, actuators, controllers, and wiring. Every additional component is another opportunity for something to go wrong. BMW knows this. They're not stupid, but they've made a calculation. They've decided that providing cutting-edge technology today is more valuable than avoiding warranty claims in the future. This is because the customer experience in the first 3 years, when the car feels special, matters more to sales than the experience in years 5 through 10. And that's where things get really interesting. This isn't a defect in the luxury car strategy, it's the whole point. Luxury car manufacturers don't make their money selling cars. They make their money by selling the experience of owning a new luxury car. Think about who buys a new BMW 7 Series. It's not someone who plans to keep it for 15 years. It's someone who leases it for 3 years and then trades it in for the next model. It could also be someone who buys new, enjoys it for 4 years, and sells before major expenses arise. For those buyers, reliability after year 5 is irrelevant. What matters is how the car feels during the time they actually plan to own it. During those first few years, the BMW offers something the Toyota cannot. It feels special. It feels advanced. It feels like a $100,000 car. However, manufacturers discovered something. The luxury buyer isn't the only customer. There's a second market, the used car buyer. This is where the economics get strange. A 3-year-old BMW 7 Series loses about 60% of its value. A 3-year-old Toyota Camry, on the other hand, loses only about 35%. Why is there such a dramatic difference? Because the market understands exactly what we've been discussing. Used car buyers know that BMW's engineering philosophy means higher repair costs. They know complex systems start failing outside the warranty period. They know that a $2,000 repair bill for a luxury car is normal, not catastrophic. Therefore, they demand a significant discount to offset the risk. Luxury manufacturers accept this. They're not trying to maximize resale value. They're trying to maximize the perceived value of the new car experience. It gets even stranger here. Some luxury manufacturers actually lose money on certain models. For example, the Porsche Cayenne was sold at a loss for the first several years after its launch. Porsche knew this going in. So why build it? Because the Cayenne attracted customers to Porsche dealerships who had never considered the brand before. Families, women, people who wanted a luxury SUV, not a sports car. Once those customers experienced Porsche ownership, a certain percentage would eventually buy a 911, a Panamera, or another model. Or a Panamera. They would also lease multiple vehicles over the course of decades. The Cayenne wasn't just a product, it was a strategy for acquiring customers. The same logic applies to BMW's 3 Series, or Mercedes C-Class. These entry-level luxury cars have the thinnest profit margins in each company's lineup. Sometimes, they're sold at a loss after dealer incentives, but they serve a purpose. They introduce younger buyers, such as people in their 30s making their first luxury purchase, to the brand. Luxury brands are betting that, once you experience what they offer, you'll continue upgrading to higher-end products. Today's 3 Series buyer becomes tomorrow's 5 Series buyer, who becomes the next decade's 7 Series buyer. Now, mass-market manufacturers can play this game too. For example, Toyota could build a flagship sedan equipped with the latest technology. They could lose money on each unit sold. They could use it as a halo product. They sometimes do. The Lexus LFA, for example, was sold at a loss. The Toyota Mirai hydrogen car also loses money. However, these are exceptions, not the strategy. Toyota's customers are fundamentally different. Toyota buyers want value. They want reliability. They want a car that gets them where they need to go without drama or expense. They're not seeking status. They're not chasing technology either. They want dependable appliances. For that customer, flashy technology isn't a selling point. It's a liability. So Toyota engineers accordingly. Here's what that means. The apparent paradox that expensive cars are less reliable than cheap cars isn't actually a paradox. It's just two different companies optimizing for two different outcomes. Toyota optimizes for total cost of ownership over 15 years. BMW optimizes for experience quality during the lease period. Toyota prioritizes proven technology. BMW prioritizes cutting-edge capability. Toyota wants you to forget you own a car. BMW wants you to remember why you bought one. Neither approach is wrong. They are simply solving different problems. But there is a deeper question. Why do customers accept this trade-off? Why do people willingly pay more for a car that will cost more to own and is more likely to break over time? The answer has less to do with engineering and more to do with human psychology. Cars are not rational purchases. If they were, everyone would drive a 10-year-old Toyota. But people don't make decisions purely on logic. They make them on feeling. And luxury cars are designed to make you feel something. They feel substantial. They feel advanced. They feel like success. When you press the start button in a BMW and hear the engine come to life, when you feel the suspension adapt to the road, when every control responds exactly as you intend, there is a satisfaction that goes beyond transportation. It is the satisfaction of owning something that feels genuinely well-engineered, even if that engineering comes with compromises. And here is the final piece. Luxury manufacturers have learned how to monetize the entire ownership lifecycle, not just the initial sale. When a BMW needs service, you return to the dealership. Labor rates are high. Parts are expensive. Even routine maintenance can cost hundreds of dollars. This is not accidental. It is a business model. The car itself may be low margin or even sold at a loss, but the long-term customer relationship is extremely valuable. Complexity creates recurring revenue. Sophisticated engineering justifies premium pricing not only for the vehicle, but for every interaction that follows. So when a luxury manufacturer sells a car at a loss, it isn't a mistake. It's a calculated investment in customer acquisition, brand positioning, and long-term revenue. The car is just the entry point. What's being sold is access to an ecosystem. Toyota sells you a car and hopes you never think about it again. Two philosophies, two business models, both successful. The paradox disappears once you see the strategy behind it.